whole world, huh?
Eldrick Taunt Tiger Woods was born on December 30th, 1975, in Cypress, California, a suburb of Los Angeles. From his first breath, he was the product of two distinct worlds, a unique blend of cultures and histories that would shape his identity and his unrelenting drive. His father, Earl Woods, was a retired lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army and a Vietnam War veteran. Earl was a man of deep complexity, a stern disciplinarian with a visionary's heart. Born to African-American parents, he also carried European and Native American ancestry. He had been a trailblazer himself, one of the first African-American college baseball players at Kansas State University. It was during a tour of duty in Thailand in 1968 that he met Kultida Taida Punsawad, a petite, strong-willed woman of mixed Thai, Chinese, and Dutch ancestry. They married and moved to California, where their only child together was born. Tiger's first name, Eldrick, was a creation of his mother's, chosen because it began with E for Earl and ended with K for Kultida. His middle name, Taunt, is a traditional Thai name. The nickname Tiger came from his father, in honor of a South Vietnamese combat buddy, Colonel Vuong Dang Phong, who had also been known as Tiger. It was a name that evoked power, focus, and a solitary kind of greatness. Earl Woods had an almost preternatural sense of his son's destiny. Before Tiger was even born, he later claimed he knew he was raising someone who would transcend the sport of golf. With a single-digit handicap himself, Earl introduced Tiger to the game before the boy could barely walk. At just 6 months old, Tiger would watch from his high chair in the garage as his father swung a club. At 10 months, he was given a sawed-off putter and would mimic his father's swing. The world got its first glimpse of this prodigy on October 6, 1978. A 2-year-old Tiger, dressed in a miniature golf outfit, appeared on The Mike Douglas Show. Standing alongside the legendary comedian Bob Hope, he confidently tapped in a putt on national television. It was a moment of pure, unscripted charm. But for those watching closely, it was also the first frame of a legend. By the age of 3, he was shooting 48 over 9 holes at the Navy golf course, where his father had playing privileges. At 5, he was featured in Golf Digest. He was not just a child playing a game. He was a prodigy honing a craft. His childhood was a rigorous curriculum of discipline and focus. Earl was the architect of his training, subjecting Tiger to mental and physical challenges designed to simulate the pressure of a Sunday final round. He would jangle coins in his pocket during Tiger's backswing, trying to break his concentration. He taught him that the mind was the most powerful club in the bag. Tida, meanwhile, provided a different kind of strength, a Buddhist-influenced calm, and a fierce, protective love that balanced Earl's military intensity. She instilled in him the importance of respect and gratitude. Tiger's talent was undeniable. Before he turned 7, he won the under-age 10 section of the drive, pitch, and putt competition. At 8, he first broke 80. He went on to win the prestigious Junior World Golf Championships an astonishing 6 times, including 4 consecutive victories from 1988 to 1991. At age 11, he defeated his father in a match for the first time, with Earl playing his best. He never beat him again. At 12, he broke 70 on a regulation course for the first time. As a young teenager, a pivotal moment occurred at the Bel Air Country Club in Los Angeles. Jack Nicklaus, the Golden Bear himself, was performing a clinic. Tiger was part of the exhibition, and his raw skill and composure left an indelible mark on Nicklaus and the crowd. For Earl, who had meticulously studied Nicklaus's career records, this was a validation of the path he had set for his son to break those very records. At 15, Tiger became the youngest U.S. junior amateur champion in history, a record that would stand for nearly 2 decades. He would win it again in 1992, becoming the first 2-time winner, and then again in 1993, remaining the event's only 3-time champion. In 1992, at just 16, he played in his first PGA Tour event, the Nissan Los Angeles Open. He missed the cut, but the experience was invaluable. He was named Golf Digest Amateur Player of the Year, Golf World Player of the Year, and Golf Week National Amateur of the Year. By the time he graduated from Western High School in 1994, Tiger Woods was not just a champion amateur golfer. He was a phenomenon. He had already been asked about his ethnicity countless times, a question that followed him from every interview. The son of a black father and a Thai mother, he defied simple categorization. He would later coin the term Cablinasian, a blend of Caucasian, Black, American Indian, and Asian, to describe his rich heritage, a word that reflected his desire to be seen for his entirety, not just a part. With a golf scholarship to Stanford University, he packed his bags for college, carrying the hopes of his family and the sport's future on his broad, young shoulders. The world of amateur golf was his to conquer, but everyone knew it was just a stepping stone. The fire had been lit in Cyprus, and it was about to become an inferno. In the fall of 1994, Tiger Woods arrived at Stanford University, a place known for academic rigor and athletic excellence. But for Tiger, it was a workshop where he would refine the machine that his father had so carefully built. He enrolled in economics, a practical choice, but his real major was domination. His freshman year was a mere formality in his ascent. At the TPC at Sawgrass in Florida, he captured the first of his 3 consecutive U.S. Amateur Championships, defeating Trip Quain in the final with a masterful display of pressure putting. This victory marked him as the most formidable amateur in the country, a title he would not relinquish for his entire time in college. In November 1994, a stark reminder of the real world intruded upon his charmed life. Returning from dinner, he was mugged in the parking lot behind his dormitory, struck in the jaw, and robbed of a gold watch and bracelet. It was a jarring moment of vulnerability for a young man who seemed otherwise invincible on the golf course. He processed it with the same quiet focus he brought to a tough lie, letting it harden his resolve rather than break his spirit. The following year, 1995, was a year of firsts and learning curves. At age 19, he played in his first Masters tournament, the Cathedral of American Golf. As the only amateur to make the cut, he finished tied for 41st, absorbing the nuances of Augusta National's treacherous greens and the weight of its history. He also made his debut at the Open Championship, the oldest championship in golf, further expanding his education on the global stage. Back at Stanford, he continued to build his legend. In 1996, he secured his 3rd consecutive U.S. amateur title at Pumpkin Ridge, in what would become the stuff of legend. He faced Steve Scott in a grueling 36-hole final. At one point, Tiger was 5 down in the morning session, but in a display of the sheer willpower that would define his career, he clawed his way back. He birdied 5 of the last 7 holes to force an 18-hole playoff the next day, which he eventually won on the 38th hole. It was a comeback for the ages, a testament to a competitive fire that burned hotter than anyone else's. He left Stanford after 2 years, his education complete. He had won 3 U.S. amateurs, learned to compete against the best in the world, and proven that his prodigious talent could translate to the highest levels of pressure. On August 27, 1996, he sent a simple statement to the tournament office of the Greater Milwaukee Open. "This is to confirm that as of now, I am a professional golfer." The amateur chapter was closed. The legend was about to be written in ink. The announcement sent shockwaves through the sports world. Before he even hit his first shot as a pro, Tiger Woods had already signed endorsement deals with Nike and Titleist that were unprecedented in golf. A 5-year, $40 million pact with the swoosh that redefined the commercial potential of the sport. The expectations were astronomical, a burden that would have crushed most 20-year-olds. But Tiger was not most 20-year-olds. His professional debut at the Greater Milwaukee Open was modest. He finished tied for 61st, earning $2,544, but not before delivering a moment of magic, a hole-in-one on the 14th hole in the final round. It was a small spark, but it hinted at the fireworks to come. It didn't take long. On October 6, 1996, just over a month after turning pro, he won his first PGA Tour event at the Las Vegas Invitational, defeating Davis Love III in a playoff and pocketing the $297,000 first-place check, and more importantly, an invitation to the following year's Masters. He won again 2 weeks later at the Walt Disney World/Oldsmobile Classic. By the end of the year, he was named Sports Illustrated's Sportsman of the Year and the PGA Tour's Rookie of the Year. But the world was still waiting for the coronation. It came on a sun-drenched Sunday in April 1997. Tiger Woods, just 21 years old, arrived at Augusta National for the Masters. He opened with a 2-over par 40 on the front 9 on Thursday, and the whispers began. Was he ready for this? His response was emphatic. He played the remaining 63 holes of the tournament at 22 under par, a display of sheer dominance that left the golf world speechless. He shot an 18 under 270, shattering the tournament record. His margin of victory was a jaw-dropping 12 strokes, the largest in Masters history. He became the youngest winner ever of the green jacket. He set or tied 27 tournament records. It was not just a victory, it was a paradigm shift. The old guard, represented by the stoic, white country club image of golf, had been lapped by a young, powerful, multiracial man in a final round red shirt who made the game look like a video game. The tiger-proofing of golf courses, lengthening them to contain his power, began almost immediately. Just 42 weeks after turning pro, on June 15th, 1997, he reached the #1 ranking in the world for the first time, the fastest ascent in the history of the sport. The king had not just arrived, he had seized the throne. The years between 1999 and 2002 represent perhaps the most dominant stretch of golf the world has ever seen. It was a period where Tiger Woods didn't just beat his competitors, he demoralized them. He possessed an aura of invincibility that turned tournaments into processions. In 1999, he won the PGA Championship at Medina, holding off a fast-charging Sergio Garcia. It was his second major, a precursor to the tidal wave that was about to hit. The year 2000 is often cited as the single greatest season by a golfer in history. It began with a masterclass in destruction at the US Open at Pebble Beach. On a course where par was a precious commodity, Tiger lapped the field. He won by an unfathomable 15 strokes, the largest margin of victory in any major championship in 140 years. He was the only player to finish under par. A month later, he traveled to the home of golf, the old course at St. Andrews, for the Open Championship. He dominated again, winning by 8 shots and, at 24, becoming the youngest player in history to complete the career Grand Slam. He then returned to the PGA Championship and won again, becoming the first player since 1953 to win 3 professional majors in a calendar year. Then came the 2001 Masters. By defeating David Duval by 2 strokes, he ended his Masters title in 2002, and then outdueled his great rival, Phil Mickelson, to win the US Open at Bethpage Black, a raucous public course in New York where he was embraced like a rock star. By the time he turned 30 on December 30th, 2005, his resume was staggering. 42 PGA Tour wins, and 10 major championships. He had won the Open again in 2005 and 2006, the latter a deeply emotional victory at Royal Liverpool just months after the death of his father, Earl, who had succumbed to cancer in May 2006. He sobbed into the arms of his caddy, Steve Williams, on the 18th green, a rare public display of vulnerability from a man who had seemed made of granite. His personal life, however, was undergoing a parallel transformation. In 2004, he married Elin Nordegren, a Swedish model he had met at the Open. They had a daughter, Sam, in 2007, and a son, Charlie, in 2009. On the surface, he had it all: a perfect family, a seemingly endless stream of trophies, and a net worth that made him one of the wealthiest athletes on the planet. In 2008, he won his 14th major at the US Open at Torrey Pines, a victory that was more a testament to his will than his physical health. He played 91 holes on a shattered left knee, with 2 stress fractures in his left tibia and a torn ACL. He limped his way to a playoff victory over Rocco Mediate, collapsing in pain after his winning putt. 8 days later, he had season-ending reconstructive knee surgery. It was a heroic feat, but it also marked the beginning of a long, painful war between his body and his ambition. The image of the perfect champion, the devoted family man, the untouchable icon, shattered in the early morning hours of November 27, 2009. A strange car accident outside his home in Isleworth, Florida, triggered a chain reaction that would expose a life of secrets. Reports emerged of a domestic dispute with his wife, Aileen, who had used a golf club to smash the rear window of his Cadillac Escalade to help him out after he had crashed into a fire hydrant and a neighbor's tree. In the weeks that followed, a torrent of women came forward with claims of extramarital affairs with Woods. The man who had controlled a golf ball with supernatural precision had completely lost control of his own life. The media scrutiny was relentless, a public shaming of epic proportions. Sponsors fled. Accenture, AT&T, and Gatorade dropped him. His pristine image was in tatters. On December 11, 2009, he announced he was taking an indefinite break from golf to try to save his marriage. In February 2010, he delivered a nationally televised apology, a carefully scripted but raw display of remorse in which he admitted to irresponsible and selfish behavior and checked into a clinic for sex addiction. His marriage, however, could not be saved. He and Elin divorced in August 2010. He returned to golf at the 2010 Masters, finishing tied for 4th, a performance that seemed to suggest he might be able to compartmentalize and focus on the game. But the magic was gone. The aura of invincibility had evaporated. He struggled with his swing, hiring and firing a series of coaches. He lost the ability to close out tournaments. For the first time in his career, he looked human and fallible. There were flashes of the old brilliance. In 2013, he won 5 times on tour and was again voted PGA Tour Player of the Year, returning to the #1 ranking in the world for a final 11th time. It seemed like a genuine comeback, but his body, which he had pushed to its absolute limits for 2 decades, was beginning to betray him in profound ways. The war he had been waging with his own physique was about to enter a long, dark chapter of defeat. Starting in 2014, Tiger Woods' career was no longer about chasing Jack Nicklaus's record of 18 majors. It was about a desperate battle for survival. On April 1st, 2014, he underwent his first microdiscectomy surgery on his back to remove a herniated disc fragment. It was the first of what would become a staggering 7 surgeries on his lower back. He missed the Masters for the first time as a professional. The surgeries continued. A second back surgery in 2015. Another in 2016. The golf world watched as a living legend was slowly being dismantled by pain. He could barely walk, let alone swing a club at 120 miles per hour. He played only 1 tournament between August 2015 and January 2018, and his world ranking plummeted outside the top 1,000. The whispers were no longer about if he would return, but whether he would ever be able to live a normal, pain-free life. Then came the nadir. On May 29th, 2017, in the early hours of the morning, police in Jupiter, Florida, found Tiger Woods asleep behind the wheel of his Mercedes, parked awkwardly on the side of the road with the engine running. He was arrested and briefly jailed on a charge of driving under the influence. A toxicology report revealed he had a cocktail of painkillers, sleeping medication, and an ingredient found in marijuana in his system, a consequence of trying to manage the constant, excruciating pain from his back and the trauma of his multiple surgeries. He later pleaded guilty to reckless driving. In a candid interview, he admitted he had been at rock bottom, that he had been relying on prescription medication to cope and had lost his way completely. He checked into a clinic to manage his medication usage. It was the lowest point in a career filled with unimaginable highs. The man who had once conquered the world was now struggling to conquer a single day. From the depths of the abyss, a slow, painful climb began. In April 2017, he underwent a desperate final procedure, a spinal fusion surgery. For many, this was seen as a last roll of the dice, a procedure that might allow him to live pain-free, but almost certainly signaled the end of his competitive career. A fused spine, they said, could not generate the torque and speed required to compete at the highest level, but they had underestimated the man's will. In January 2018, he made his return, testing his new back in a low-key event. He didn't win, but he could walk, he could swing. He was competitive. He had a top 10 finish at the Open that summer, briefly holding the lead in the final round at Carnoustie. It was a stunning preview of what was to come. He capped off the year by winning the Tour Championship, his first victory in over 5 years, an emotional triumph that moved him to tears and sent shockwaves of joy through the sporting world. But the ultimate test awaited, the 2019 Masters, Augusta National, the scene of his first coronation 22 years earlier. The week was a pressure cooker of expectation. Tiger was in contention from the start. He played with a calm, calculating precision, his experience and knowledge of the course on full display. On Sunday, he was in the final group, and the atmosphere was electric, unlike anything golf had seen in years. On the back nine, with the roars echoing through the Georgia pines, Tiger made his move. He birdied the 13th, 14th, and 15th holes, seizing the lead. He walked to the 18th green with a 2-shot lead. The crowd surrounding the fairway, a living, breathing sea of emotion. He tapped in his final putt and let out a primal, guttural scream that seemed to release over a decade of pain, doubt, and shame. He embraced his children, Sam and Charlie, and his mother Tita on the 18th green, a poignant echo of the embrace with his father 22 years prior. It was arguably the greatest comeback in sports history. He had won his 15th major championship, ending an 11-year drought. A month later, on May 6, 2019, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In October, he won the Zozo Championship in Japan for his 82nd career PGA Tour title, tying the all-time record held by Sam Snead. The resurrection was complete. The fairy tale was not destined for a storybook ending. The body that had given him so much had finally reached its structural limit. On February 23, 2021, while driving in Los Angeles for the Genesis Invitational, the world held its breath once again. Tiger Woods lost control of his SUV, which crossed a center median, hit a tree, and rolled multiple times. He was traveling at an estimated speed of 84 miles per hour in a 45 miles per hour zone. The wreckage was horrific. Emergency responders had to use the jaws of life to extract him. The medical report was a catalogue of trauma, comminuted open fractures to both the upper and lower portions of his right tibia and fibula, bones shattered and piercing the skin. His foot and ankle were stabilized with a combination of screws and pins. For a time, the conversation wasn't about golf. It was about whether he would keep his leg. But the Tiger logic that had fueled his 2019 comeback remained intact. Against all medical probability, he returned to competitive golf at the 2022 Masters. He didn't just show up, he made the cut, walking the grueling hilly terrain of Augusta National on a fused ankle and a rebuilt leg. It was a feat of pure, agonizing willpower. However, the daily Tiger was gone. He acknowledged that he would never play a full-time schedule again, transitioning instead to a one-tournament-a-month rhythm, prioritizing the majors and his own hosted events. As the competitive fire cooled, a new chapter emerged, Tiger the Mentor. The world watched a softer side of the machine as he teamed up with his son, Charlie, at the PNC Championship. Seeing the two in matching Sunday red, the same mannerisms, the same club twirls, the same focused intensity, offered a poignant resolution to the story that began with Earl and a 2-year-old on The Mike Douglas Show. By 2024, the legend began to decouple from the athlete. After 27 years and a partnership that defined modern sports marketing, Tiger parted ways with Nike, launching his own brand, Sunday Red. He also moved into the boardroom, becoming a vice chairman of the PGA Tour Enterprises, fighting to stabilize the game during its most fractured era. In 2025, Tiger continued to navigate the delicate balance of age and injury. While his appearances on the green became rarer, his influence on the game only deepened. He was no longer just a player, he was the institution. He stood as a man who had survived the highest highs and the most public of depths, finally finding peace in the role of the elder statesman, watching his daughter, Sam, and son, Charlie, forge their own paths in the shadow of the greatest legacy the game has ever known. As Tiger Woods turned 50 on December 30th, 2025, the statistical achievements are etched in stone. 15 major championships, second only to Jack Nicklaus, a record-tying 82 PGA Tour victories, a record 683 total weeks as the world's #1 ranked golfer, a record 11 PGA Player of the Year awards, the youngest Masters champion, the only player to hold all 4 major titles at once. But his legacy is far more profound than numbers. He changed the game of golf forever. He made it athletic, he made it cool, he made it diverse. He inspired a generation of golfers, from Rory McIlroy to Jordan Spieth to countless young kids of all backgrounds who saw themselves in him. He broke the color barrier in a sport historically resistant to change and forced the sport to modernize from the way courses were designed to the way players trained. His journey is a story of extremes, of soaring triumph and shattering failure, of godlike invincibility and all too human frailty. He was a son who fulfilled a father's prophecy, a husband who lost his way, a patient who fought through unimaginable pain, and a champion who rose from the ashes of his own life. He is not just the greatest golfer of his generation, but one of the most compelling, complex, and transcendent figures in the history of sports. His is the story of a man who, time and again, found a way to rise.